Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Anurekha Charivag, Assistant Professor at the Department of Sociology, Savitribai Phule, Pune University. Today we are going to discuss the module Understanding Contemporary Ruralities, Part 1. This module is part of the paper Agrarian Relations and Social Structure in India. This paper is coordinated by Dr. Manish Thakur of IIM Kolkata. In this module, titled Understanding Contemporary Ruralities, we are going to first focus on studies of village India. Further, we are going to look into the change and continuity, especially what rural India is facing today. Further, we will also look into concerning studies with regard to villages. What is very important for us to understand that over a period of time, studies on villages have been declining. But since the rise of agrarian distress and the coming of farmer suicides in India, slowly but steadily the interest in village India is increasing. So, it is important for us to understand what are the contemporary ruralities. In this module, our focus is more on the contemporary trends in village studies rather than on studies in the past. We will also speculate on the future trends of village studies in India given its glorious past and history of sociology. Studies of village India, change and continuity. The independence of India brought about considerable changes in the village society and agrarian economy. The Indian state undertook several initiatives to transform the village economy and to reduce poverty and inequality through its rural development programs. Land reforms were considered necessary for the modernization of agriculture and to eliminate intermediary tenures, control rent and tenancy rights, grant ownership to tenants, impose limitations on land holdings and distribute the excess land among the poor. It was meant to have an impact on the existing power structure of rural society. Green revolution was introduced in 1960s and actually the implementation of higher yielding variety seeds, chemical fertilizers, infrastructure for irrigation and pesticides. Other parts of green revolution are cheap institutional credit, marketing facilities. At first it was proclaimed that the introduction of new technology would benefit both rich and the small farmers. But in reality, it observed that only the big farmers find it beneficial as they produce enough surpluses to buy required inputs. But for the small farmers who do not have enough surplus to invest in new technology, it increases the burden of debt. Therefore, the economic political conditions of the rich farmers are enhanced by green revolution on one hand and dependency of the small farmers on rich farmers grow on the other hand. The poor villages are mostly dependent on usurious moneylenders. In a report 1969, the Reserve Bank of India reported that approximately 91% of rural cultivators take loans from informal credit sources, including moneylenders. So, the Government of India decided to expand the formal sources of easy and cheap loans in the rural areas. The cooperative credit societies were formed in the villages. Commercial banks were directed to open branches in rural areas and provide loans to the agricultural sectors. As a result, the dependency of rural people on usurious moneylenders has declined significantly over the years. In 1981, on an average, 62.6% of the total credit requirements were managed by institutional sources of credit. However, some scholars argue that the benefits of the formal sources of credit are largely used by better off sections of the society instead of rural poor. Community Development Program was launched for the all-round development of the rural poor in 1952, but the program failed to do well as there was no formal institutions at the village level to convey the needs of rural people. Therefore, Balwant Rai Mehta Committee recommended the democratic decentralization to the Panchayati Raj institutions. For the committee, public participation and community work should be organized through statutory representative bodies. Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, introduced Panchayati Raj in Nagaur district of Rajasthan on 2nd October 1959, and by the mid-60s, panchayats has been set up in most part of the country. In its initial phase, a substantial number of younger people began to participate in democratic election. As a result, a large number of leaders emerged from the local level. After Nehru's death, political leaders started imploring the panchayat system. The panchayat bodies suffered from scarcity of funds, irregular elections, and in many cases it was simply defunct. Therefore, in order to make panchayats more viable and responsive institutions, the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act 1993 was passed. Through this amendment, the establishment of Panchayati Raj has been mandated for all states. A massive change in village societies has occurred through the introduction of PRIs. A considerable number of people from underprivileged sections of societies and women have come forward and joined politics. Thus, a change in rural power structure and gender role and women's status has also taken place in villages. Karanth is of the opinion that traditional Jajmani system in the Indian villages has adapted itself according to the changing needs of the people. Intervention of new technology in village economy has made significant impact. It does not alter the mutual relationship and dependency among agrarian communities. In Rajapira village, Karanth has observed that introduction of sericulture did not affect the Jajmani system. New technology helps to emerge new types of service specialists in the village. The roles of these new specialists are not hereditary. Either they replace old specialists or they compete with them. In a way, it changes patron-client composition in the network of Jajmani system. People still engage in the Jajmani network because of two main reasons. First, the hereditary works are found as supplementing their income. Many villagers consider the caste occupation as such as priesthood as a side work. Second, maintaining caste tradition gives a sense of satisfaction. The point is that village economy continues the elements of tradition. Common property resources and their importance in rural economy have been received enough attention by researchers and development planners after independence. CPR includes those resources that are available to all villagers and no particular individual has absolute property rights. For example, village pastures, forest ponds, river and riverbeds and waste dumping place. Village pastures provide grazing land and fodder that help in livestock production. The small farmers cannot use their paddy field as pasture land. CPRs also play an important role during the crisis times such as drought. Jodha argues that 84 to 100% of poor villages are dependent on CPR for food, fuel, fodder and fiber items. Though the dependency of large farmers on CPRs is low in comparison to the poor, they collect silt from the ponds to increase the productivity of the land. It has also been noted that large number of farmers use timber from village forests for the private use. CPRs are neglected because of rural development planning and may be mainly emphasized on private property resources, including high-yielding crop varieties, distribution of crossbreed cattle, providing infrastructure for groundwater lifting devices. Another important reason is that exploiting CPRs does not require any specialized knowledge. Collecting resources from CPR is also a laborious job. However, it is a low payoff, so it is unappealing for the rich. A gradual decline of CPR is also noted. It is mainly because of physical loss of resources, deterioration of resources, and privatization of CPR. Physical loss of CPRs happens due to development initiatives such as construction of irrigation dam, road, building. In many areas, CPRs are used as daily basis that leads to gradual deterioration of resources. In many areas, CPRs are distributed among the poor and landless people. The movement and agitation of villages in different parts of the country have also acquired a dimension in the study of village societies. In central part of India, the villagers organized Chipko movement 1970 against the deforestation and chopping down of trees for commercial use. In West Bengal, the villagers protested against acquisition of arable land for industrial purposes in 2007. Thus, the contemporary trends in the study of Indian village are shaped by post-independence development initiatives, policy reforms, change in the agrarian economy, empowerment of rural people, and the rapid development of technology and communication. Rural India today. Role of women in Indian villages. Cattle dung is an important source of fuel, fertilizer, and plaster in many Indian villages. Cattle are largely found in rural houses. These cattle are mostly owned by men, but cattle dung and dung work are exclusively associated with women. In villages, it is very usual to see women walking at the back of the herds of the animals or moving around grazing land to collect dung. Men have a feeling of abhorrence to handle those excrements. Jeffrey et al. Argue that men from underprivileged sections of society, particularly the chamar, leather workers, and bhangi sweeper caste, were engaged in dung work for most of the hereditary patrons of the Jajmani system. But now the women do most of the dung work, although they belong to rich peasant household. Dung work is a strenuous work. Women continuously need to bend and pick up ordo and then lift it on the hand and carry it up to a quarter of a mile. Women abandon this job only during pregnancy. Despite this huge contribution From the side of rural women, the role is now considered significant by the economists, policymakers, and scholars of Indian villages. Land is also considered an important asset in rural India because Indian society is predominantly an agrarian society. Inheritance of property rights or ownership of land mostly follows patrilineal lines. So, in most part of the country, males are owners of land. There are some exceptions in matrilineal societies found in some parts of southern and northeastern India. Before the adoption of modern technology in agriculture during 70s, India had a homestead agricultural technology. Then women had massive participation in agricultural practices. After implementing mechanized agriculture system, India becomes an agriculturally surplus economy, but women participation in agriculture is reduced drastically. In modern India, modern agriculture, human labor is replaced by machineries which are predominantly operated by males. So, Goli and Apulupau argue that female labor is systematically replaced by man. The women are not given the rights of ownership and control of the land in most part of rural India. It has been reported that not more than 2% of land ownership belongs to women. They do not even have liberty to spend their earnings independently as they are excluded from property rights. They now have low autonomy and decision-making power in society. Goli and Apollo find that in villages, women are still dominated by male even when they are employed and educated. Changing nature of village politics. Indian villages are replete with caste and agrarian conflicts. In general, people from underprivileged sections of society are exploited by the dominant caste group. However, the emergence of caste politics has witnessed a massive reconfiguration of power relations in the countryside. Politically, the backward caste have begun to challenge the authority of the upper caste, and economically, they challenge the semi-feudal practices. In North India, Dalit politics has a force to reckon with despite its split with the emergence of more backward classes caste. The rise of most backward castes alters social relations and power equations in villages. Traditionally, the caste conflict was prevalent between upper and lower caste, but with emergence of most backward castes, the underprivileged sections are divided into several subgroups and which affects the political preferences of the villagers. The rise of regional politics and the introduction of village panchayats have brought about massive changes in the villages. The state of West Bengal is a good example in this context. In 1977, the left-front government came to power in West Bengal. One of the achievements was to revive Panchayati Raj system in the state. To bring contest and accountability, they introduced party politics in Panchayati Raj. From 1978 to 2008, in Panchayati Raj elections, the left-front government had achieved an overwhelming majority. Devraj Bhattacharya argues CPIM has always had an ambivalent attitude towards the relationship between party and the panchayat. CPIM's West Bengal State Committee document mentions that party will provide direction and guidance to active panchayat in conformity with the principles and ideals of the party. Therefore, panchayat subcommittees are formed at each level of panchayat by CPIM. These are also known as Parichalan Committee in Bengali. Through these committees, party domination has been established over panchayats. All major decisions and activities of Gram Panchayats are overseen by the party. Rashi Dasgupta calls it a well-oiled CPIM machinery. Therefore, it is evident that panchayats are dominated by the party, and as a result of party domination, common villagers keep themselves away from the activities of panchayats, and politicization of rural life also occurs side by side. Role of technology in changing village life. As cliche goes, foundation of the village economy is agriculture. It provides sustenance to millions of the people of the country. Science and technology have played an important role in increasing production. Despite increasing use of agriculture technology, Indian villages have severe technology deficit. There is also a dearth of electricity, water, health and communication facilities in rural areas. Government of India has taken several measures to transform rural India by introducing modern technology. In what follows, we'll talk about some of the technology initiatives having a bearing on village life in general. Green Revolution. India faced food crisis during the mid-1960s owing to her agriculture being seasonal, nature-bound and household-based. Green Revolution transforms household-bound agriculture into science and industry-based. Success of Green Revolution depends on the use of modern technologies including high-yielding varieties of seeds, use of fertilizers, pesticides, agriculture machinery and irrigation. Therefore, it is crucial to build proper infrastructure in rural areas, and cultivators should be endowed with credit facilities and marketing opportunities. It has been observed that green revolution has made impacts across country. Package of modern technology cannot be implemented totally in all villages. Irrigation facilities are still unavailable in many drought-prone regions. However, there is a marked increase in agricultural production. Such increase in production promotes transformation of earlier subsistence-centered agriculture into a market-oriented one in some regions of the country. The hard labours gained substantially through the development. When cultivation was nature-based, laborers were hired only once a year. But as a result of green revolution, farming happens twice or more in a year, so there is a sharp increase in the demand of agricultural laborers. On the other hand, agricultural mechanization leads to formation of a new class of laborers who are skilled in operating modern technologies such as drivers of tractors and operators of power tillers. Besides, diversified income opportunities, including off-farm labor, are also increased in rural areas as absorption of power of agriculture leaves its limit. Indigenous agriculture implements such as plough, ladder, livestock such as bullock have almost vanished. As a result, traditional work groups that maintain their livelihood by manufacturing those tools has moved out as well. Another important feature of village agriculture is that Indian villages cultivation is not the only means of subsistence, but it is also deeply embedded in the long tradition of cultural practices. Many rituals are performed according to agricultural cycle. Adoption of modern technology changes the nature of agricultural cycle. However, modern package of agriculture has not been implemented uniformly all over the country. Therefore, differences in cultural practices have been noted in different villages. For example, Vasavi finds that traditional customs and beliefs remain integrated in modern agriculture, but on the whole, tendency is towards a decline. Agricultural rituals are essential components of traditional production systems, so such rituals are performed in different stages of farming. In general, agricultural rituals can be classified into 4 types: land preparation rituals, transplantation, post-transplantation rituals, and harvesting and post-harvesting rituals. It has been observed that peasants are reluctant to perform agricultural rituals in the wake of Green Revolution. Samadar and Das in the fieldwork have observed that the only post-harvesting rituals are performed by the farmers during the harvesting and the sorting of rice crop. Peasants no longer follow the traditional calendar of sowing, broadcasting, transplantation because of the introduction of high-yielding variety seeds and controlled irrigation. Farmers are more concerned on increasing the production. It is thought that agricultural rituals are mostly associated with insecurities related to production such as monsoon and rainfall, as they have agricultural facilities and pesticides. The value of agricultural rituals has been supplanted. The folklore, rhymes, aphorism which were developed through generation have lost their significance in the new production system. On the contrary, performing family rituals have flourished significantly due to an increase in annual income. The farmers adore the god and the goddesses and pray for the success in farming and well-being. The celebration of community rituals is another new dimension of village life in post-Green Revolution period. Village youth or political clubs organize festivals. The members collect contributions from different families in the village. In such ceremonies, both affluent and poor people can worship the gods together. Different villages compete with each other in organizing these ceremonies. Sometimes villages hire stage performers to vie with neighborhood villages. These family and community rituals denote prosperity of the villages. It also shows the wealth and economic status within the traditional village hierarchy. It has been noted that as a result of technology adoption and economic gains, the traditional caste hierarchy and patriarchal order are no more rigid than as they were in the past. The lower caste rich villagers invite Brahmin priests to perform their family rituals. Women are freed from farm work as they have more authority to manage household works according to their own plans and desires. Mobile technology. Mobile technology is introduced in India in 1995. Government has taken conscious effort to expand mobile networks in rural areas. Many service providers and handset companies compete with each other to make inroads among the rural consumers. Government initiatives and competition among private companies have resulted in reduction of tariff and handset prices. Now, mobile phones are most widely used in communication technology device in rural India. Establishing mobile technology is an area and cheaper than that of land phone connection. However, using computer and internet requires skills and basic education, but using mobile phones does not require literacy. It has been reported that there were 130 million mobile phones in India in October 2006, but by July 2014 the subscriber base has been raised to 918.72 million as reported by Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. Among them 378.29 million people are rural consumers, and the proportion of rural tele-density is 41.18. Mobile phones bring significant benefits to rural. Phones are used to search market-related information, agricultural production, and also provide access to police, hospitals, legislature, and other emergency services in remote rural areas. In Chennai, the Foundation of Occupational Development provides micro-entrepreneurial training to women. The trained women are endowed with mobile phones. It has been observed that mobile phones help to increase their earnings and empower them to take new initiatives. Mobile phone technology in rural areas helps maintain social capital among the rural migrants. In this way, it facilitates rural to urban migration for work and study. 10 Human in an ethnographic observation in Bankura district of West Bengal has observed that mobile phones are used in some areas where there is no electricity. That users travel to other villages where electricity facilities are available to charge their mobile batteries. To her, mobile phone has become a home second electric gadget after the radio. Initially, mobile phones are used by the car and tractor drivers. It helps them to stay in touch with customers and make emergency contact with repair and service centers. Before the arrival of mobile technology in rural areas, making a phone call comprised long steps. Land phones were available only in a few homes, so the persons needed to identify the neighborhood phones or the persons to whom he or she wanted to speak. First, she requested the neighbors to call the person. The latter would wait by the neighborhood phone at a specific time. Sometimes the caller delivered his or her message to the owner of the phone and requested him to forward it to the exact person. Literate villagers used to write letters to exchange information, but calling has replaced most of the letter writing. One village postmaster informs 10 Hunan that circulation of private letters has first declined and eased completely. Rural people also exchange news through visitors. If someone came from other village, she was asked about his or her village. She was requested to deliver certain news to the relevant persons. Such visitor networks were once a reliable network of communication in rural areas. Now people get news of their relatives instantly without visiting or traveling to distant people. The mobile technology make rural politics faster, heterogeneous and translocal. Earlier, the politics at the central and the state level could not reach at the grassroots level. The village politics were isolated from state politics. Now, the rural activists can communicate with other activists and organizations more efficiently by using their mobile phones. The activists can also spread their words more broadly and accurately. The rural people are no more dependent entirely on their local leaders, and now they can get extra medium for verbalization of alternative discourses. Hence, a change in the rural power structures has occurred because of power shifts from local leaders to translocal networks. Such a transformation leads to a democratization of the rural politics, and it assists the growth of the opposition in rural Bengal. Mobile phones bring considerable changes in the village economy as well. At first, the farmers had to negotiate with the middlemen for selling the products. Now they can negotiate with many buyers without taking help of the middlemen. They can settle the prices at the last moment, and thus their earnings have gone up. Digital divide. The term digital divide stands for the gap that exists between those who have and those who have no access to technology and related services. Thus, India can be divided into people who have and do not have access to modern equipment, including telephone, computer, internet facilities. Digital divide is apparent between the people in cities in India. According to World Bank, adult literacy rate is 61% in India. Moreover, information and communication technologies (ICTs) are growing rapidly in the country. But in reality, access to ICTs remain poor in the villages. The digital gap has widened in terms of certain infrastructural parameters, including electricity, IT penetration, tele-density, and internet density. The growth rate of IT penetration in India is not encouraging. The Hindu, a popular newspaper in India, reported on June 5, 2014 that IT penetration growth in India is lowest in Asia Pacific. The rural-urban tele-densities are 42.43 and 139.42 respectively in 2014. The figures clearly indicate the digital gap between the rural and urban. It has been estimated that 70% of India's population, almost 83.3 crore people, reside in villages. The rest, 37.7 crore, live in urban areas. but there are 90 million urban internet users, whereas in rural areas there are only 68 million claimed internet users, and among them only 49 are active internet users by the end of October 2013. It is also observed that a significant portion of the users are mobile internet users. Bridging the digital gap between rural and urban is necessary because internet is not only the means of communication medium but also a place of economic activity. Students and workers from remote corners get instant information about their study and jobs. Through internet, rural people can be endowed with facilities of district education, e-governance, telemedicine, job matching and marketplace. Several measures are taken to improve the condition of villages by introducing ICTs in rural areas. For example, in Tamil Nadu, an e-commerce platform called India Shop has been designed to sell the products made by rural women's cooperatives. The Dhan Foundation and Swayam Krishi Sangam implement ICTs in order to manage microfinance projects. In West Bengal, an ICT project called Navamama has been implemented in Baduria rural region of North 24 Paraganas in order to empower rural women. The beneficiaries have reported that they are respected by their family and community leaders. They feel that they are able to get jobs with enough confidence. As young women learn computer together in the centers, a sense of solidarity is growing among them. In this way, subsistence patterns and patriarchal rigidity of traditional Indian villages is changing due to the aid of modern technology. Some issues concerning India's villages. Out of 121 crore Indians, 83.3 crore Indians reside in rural areas as per the 2011 census. The agriculturally active population has grown by 50% in between 1980 and 2011. Agriculture provides sustenance to millions of people of the country. On the other hand, poverty and malnutrition are two major problems facing rural India. According to the 11th Five-Year Plan, the number of poor people in the country amounted to 302 million as on 2004-5. A large proportion of them live in rural areas. According to Business Standard report published in July 2013, almost half of rural India lives before poverty line. The major causes of poverty among India's rural people include lack of access to productive assets and financial resources, high levels of literacy, inadequate health care, limited access to sanitation, drinking water and other social services. These limitations result into massive malnutrition, particularly undernourishment in rural areas. In this context, World Bank poses that malnutrition is a largely reflection of poverty. People do not have enough income for food. Scholarly articles also argue that nutritional status of the urban children is better than that of the rural children. In the villages, men and women agricultural families go to fields in the early morning. Many women engage in cattle work in addition to the domestic activities. Poor women from landless families work as maid servants, casual laborers in cities. So they have limited time to take care of the offspring. In most cases, when they go for work, they hand over the younger children to their elder son and daughter. Hence, children do not get proper maternal attention and nutritional requirements. Besides, the elder children are not allowed to go to schools because if they go to schools, who will look after their siblings? Apart from this, due to rampant poverty and overburden of work, women in rural areas also suffer from nutritional deficiency. According to UNICEF, malnutrition is more common in India than in sub-Saharan Africa. 1 in every 3 malnourished children in the world lives in India. Lokshin points out two major reasons for malnutrition. First, a large number of people are unable to buy sufficient food. Second, a majority of population do not access proper sanitation and the living condition is so pernicious that they are exposed to diseases and parasitic infections. Malnutrition severely affects country's human resources. Student friends, while coming to a conclusion of the module titled Understanding Contemporary Ruralities Part 1, we have looked into the need for various studies with regard to common property resources, information communication and technology that has been invading the village India. Further, we are also looked into important studies of changing role of women. What is very much important is that we have now emerging studies that deals with issues of concern, especially related to health and nutrition, especially of the marginalized people, especially mothers and children. Further, we have also looked into the various ways in which village India is changing, which also has an impact on the way village studies in India, especially within the sociological discipline, is changing. Thank you.